Welcome to Career Tools. This week, we're not to go to human resources. The questions this cast answers are: when should you go to human resources or HR? When should you not go to HR? And what's HR's role in the organisation? Knowing what their role is really helps you know what conversations you can and can't have with them.
Have you ever had a horrible boss? If you have, it is nowhere near the comedic adventure that the movie would lead you to believe it is. Having a bad boss feels less like a comedic farce and more like a horror movie. Register today at manager-tools.com/training to join us for one of our effective manager conferences held internationally. We'll help you to not be the antagonist in your direct's biography.
Many people think that HR is the place that you go to when you're dissatisfied with something at work, whether it's a boss that you don't like, or work that you don't like, or conditions that you don't like, or something that somebody said that you don't like. People think that HR is the place to go, and they expect a sympathetic reaction every time. They think they go to HR and HR's going to say, yeah, you know, your boss is really mistreating you and we're going to make him do something different. And people are so disappointed because that's not what HR says. HR normally always says, your boss is doing fine, he's getting results. If you're a little upset with him, whatever. HR is not your friend. And now probably all the people who work in HR are really sad because we've just said that they're not friendly. They are friendly. They are there to help you. They have an important role in an organization, but they're not your therapist. They're not the person to go to when you just have minor dissatisfactions. Mm-hmm. And they work for the company, not for you. And this guidance is going to be tough love for some people. And it's based on the reality that we see, not necessarily how we would want things to be. Right. But you can't legislate, you can't give people guidance on what we would like to see. We want to help you deal with the reality that you live in. And so that's why this guidance is maybe going to be tough to hear for some people, but it's important that you know it. So what's our outline?
We're going to cover, are you dissatisfied? Have you tried to fix it? Are you the problem? Have you done the work? And do you want to talk off the record? And we're going to start with, are you dissatisfied? A lot of people treat HR in the same way that kids treat their parents. And at the first sign of something that they don't like, they run to tattle or tell stories, hoping that they'll get a sympathetic reaction from HR, from human resources. HR, though, is not the arbiter of domestic disputes. That's really not their role. Their role, their primary role in the organization, is to protect and defend the organization from people-related issues. And yeah, of course, they do future planning and training and recruitment and a number of other things. But their primary role is protective. They're always on the side of the organization, not the individual. And when you just don't like something that's happening, don't go to HR. Maybe your role is changing, for example, and you would prefer that it stay the same. Well, if your role is changing in the interest of the customer, and of course, therefore the company, HR will not help you in the way that you want. They'll take the organization side and tell you that you can either change or find a new role. It's not about feelings, right? It's not about your feelings, their feelings, your managers, anybody's feelings, really. It's about what's within the best interest of the organization, and that's why HR is there. Another reason not to go to HR is just because you think something isn't fair. Maybe, so your team's bonus was distributed unequally, and you're not feeling like that's a fair thing that happened. HR won't help you. That's not their job. It's not within the organization's interest to sanction your boss or to give you more money. The only time you get more money is when you're delivering more value to your organization. Even if HR agrees with you, they will defend your manager because losing you is cheaper than losing your manager.
Right. They will defend the manager's decision because the manager is empowered by the organization to make that decision. If they're given a bucket of money and they're allowed to give bonuses out based on what they think is performance, what your manager thinks is his team's individual contribution to the company, the value that they've given to the organization, and your manager is empowered to give that money out in whatever way he sees fit, then HR, there's nothing they can do about it to some extent. The manager was given that decision-making responsibility, and he made a decision. And there isn't really anything that the HR can say about it, right? They can't say, oh, you made a bad decision, so we're going to take that back, that decision-making ability from you. Now, if a whole bunch of managers make bad decisions and HR gets lots of complaints, then the bonus giving out decision-making might be moved up a level in the organization, so that decision-making ability may be taken away from that layer of managers if there's a consistent problem. But it's unlikely that one manager, anything will happen. And it's not like, oh, well, we've got another bucket of money over here that we can use to balance what his bad decisions. Like, that money doesn't exist either. Bonuses are given based on the money that the company has available and can sensibly spend on bonuses. And, it's not like there's a whole bunch of money sitting around in a company doing nothing, waiting for something to happen that's unfair, and it's there to balance it out. That bucket doesn't exist.
Bummer.
Yeah, exactly, right? If you do think a bonus or something else has been distributed unequally based on gender, race, religion, sexual orientation, or any other protected status, then you may have a case, right? If it's been done on performance and all the people in the team are 40-year-old white guys, and one person has been given 2% and one person is given 12%, there's no case because it's just based on performance, which is judged by the manager and the organization. Now, if all the ladies got 2% and all the men got 12%, then there might be a case there. Now, taking companies to court or even having an arbitration, which is what normally happens, HR will call everybody in and they'll maybe have an outside arbitrator to try and work out what happened, what should have happened, and how we remediate for what happened. But things like that are incredibly stressful as the person. You might think you've been treated unfairly, but a 6-month process to go through and try and prove that you were treated unfairly and still work at the company while you're doing that, it's a lot of money if you have to have a lawyer, which often you do, and it's a lot of mental energy. It's a lot of emotional energy. And at the same time, normally you're still working at the company. And it's not fair that that's true. It's not fair that the process should put people off from defending themselves, but it's reality. Mm-hmm. So, if you think that there's a case based on a protected status, then yes, you have a reason to go to HR. But they're still going to defend the company because that's their role. And you're setting yourself up for something a really difficult thing. I had a job where I was fired unfairly, and I went to one meeting where they told me why I was fired. And after that, I said, I'm not going to contest it. I'm not. And they wanted me to work my 4 weeks notice, and the doctor signed me off. He said, there's no way you can go in after that conversation and work normally. Like that's going to be way too stressful. So my doctor signed me off, but I was like, I could fight this, but I don't have the mental or the emotional energy to do that. I just want to look for a new job. And that meant that company got away with something that they shouldn't have got away with. But it was my decision, and I decided not to pursue it. So I don't want to put people off from contesting things that should be contested. I just want to give you fair warning, because I don't think that people think, they think, I've got a case, this is going to be easy. Well, even if you have a case, it's not easy. So we just want to tell you that.
Mm-hmm. If what's happening is not illegal, which, if you're paying attention, is not the same as being legal, HR will defend the organization against you. And when you say to them, if you don't change this, I'll leave, HR will shut the door behind you and say, we don't want that troublemaker here. In 99% of cases, HR will not force a manager to change. And so the person who's making the complaint or causing this issue to arise by speaking out about it might be the person who suffers in that equation. And anytime you're trying to change someone other than yourself, you're probably on the losing side. In general, it's much easier to change yourself than to change someone else, right? The only person whose behavior you can control is your own. So we have some guidance about what you should do. And that guidance, we start with, have you tried to fix it? HR is not the arbiter of small arguments. Maybe you're annoyed because someone plays music in the office and that makes it difficult for you to concentrate. If you go to HR and ask them to intervene, they won't. Even if the employee handbook says no music, right? You can't play music in the office. HR will almost certainly not intervene. The first thing they're going to do is ask you, hey, have you tried to fix it? Have you done anything about it? They'll ask if you've spoken to that person or spoken to your boss. And if you're in trouble because you're not getting your work done, they'll tell you to get your work done. They won't go to your boss and say, oh, you have unrealistic expectations, even if he does, right? Which that's a whole another kettle of fish.
Yeah.
HR, they don't care.
No, that sounds really mean, right? HR don't care. They do care. They just have a lot to do, and a minor disagreement between two team members isn't something that they want to get involved in. But they don't care if one person said something you didn't like one time, right? It's up to you to say, hey, that's not appropriate. Don't say that again. If somebody says something sexist or racist or any of the other ists, it's up to you to say, hey, that's not a good thing to be saying around here. Don't do it again. And you can do that with a team member. Often we speak without thinking, and we speak and we say something and it can be interpreted differently. If somebody, if we were on our ops call and I said something stupid and somebody called me after the call and said, hey, I don't know if you realized, but that was an ist and you shouldn't say that. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I didn't mean that. I'm so sorry. I won't do it again. And that's what most people's reaction is if you tell them that they did something wrong, even as a peer. And so you have a whole bunch of actions that you could take before you go to HR, right? And HR want you to take those actions that it's reasonable for you to take because they got a million things to deal with, and this doesn't, rise to the level of things that bother them. Mm-hmm. They don't care if your boss told you off for something you didn't do, or if you didn't do something and your boss told you off for doing it, right? If your boss gets it wrong once, twice, a year, twice a year, like twice a month, really, it doesn't rise to the level of things that they're worried about. Even if it happens 100 times, they're probably not going to sanction your boss because it's cheaper to replace you than it is to replace your boss. And your boss is the organization, and their job is to defend the organization. And again, it's not fair, right? It's not fair that your boss should be able to tell you off for something that you didn't do. But it's reality that you won't get very far if you go to HR. So whatever the problem is, try and fix it yourself first.
Yes, first tend your own garden.
Oh, nice.
So you should ask yourself, are you the problem? Okay, I've already been mean, so it's just more of the same. This is going to hurt. If you've had multiple bad managers, terrible jobs, poor reviews, annoying coworkers, difficult customers, substandard equipment, the problem isn't them. It's you. HR, your manager, probably everyone you work with knows that, and you're oblivious. And we say this with love, guys. We really do mean to help. We've interviewed people who have told us that the company expected too much for the amount they were paid for the last 4 jobs they did. And they'll tell us that the manager was unreasonable for every job they've ever had. Or they might say the company was disorganized and didn't take their suggestions on board for the last few jobs. Once, sure. twice, maybe. After that, the problem isn't the environment, it's the person in it. So, like, think about it. Say you had someone come clean your house. The person, did the cleaning, they did their thing. But when they left, there were things you didn't think they'd done well or that they missed. So you employ someone else and you have the same problem. Maybe you engage a third person and you have the same issues. The problem is not the cleaners. It's your expectations. It's the same way at work. If you perpetually have issues with the people or circumstances at work, it's not them, right? It's you. And that's something we may need to consider, that it might be us.
Yes. If every manager you've ever had was a bad manager, it wasn't them. It's you. Mark says sometimes if one person tells you you have a green tail, then you can ignore them. And if 2 people say you have a green tail, then well. If 7 people tell you you have a green tail, you have to look around and see if you've got a green tail. Because by the time we get to 7, it's possible that they're right and you're wrong. That's how this works too. If you perpetually have the same problem in your life, it probably isn't the environment. It's probably your expectations. And that kind of gets a bit woo-woo, which we avoid. And we're not going to tell you what to do if you have that problem, because you probably need to see a professional who can help you more than we can. But we just want you to be aware. If this problem keeps coming up, you have to be willing to accept that it may be you and change some behaviors and see if those change things before you go to HR or someone else. You have to consider the possibility that it could be you that's the problem. Let's stop being mean. Let's do the next one. Have you done the work?
This is one we see most often when people are talking about raises. People give reasons for a raise which have nothing to do with their work. Maybe they say, I had another child, or my wife wants a bigger house, or one of my children is going to college. And none of these are reasons for the company to give you more money. The only time you get more money is if you're delivering more value. And if you're delivering more value and you go to your boss with no evidence, he'll say no, and HR will agree with him. If you want a raise, of course, there's a cast for that.
And it tells you all the work that you need to do in order to prove that you should be given a raise, right? Mm-hmm. You have to go through that work in order to get more money. And if you haven't done that work, then your manager and HR will dismiss you, because there's no reason for them not to, right? If you say, oh, my wife wants a bigger house, well, what's that got to do with your value to the company? And if you can show your value to the company and that comparable jobs in your area are paid more, then you start to have evidence for I should get a raise. But you have to do that work first.
Yeah, you have to do the work. If you haven't gotten the reimbursement for expenses that you think you should have you submitted the paperwork correctly? Is it, in the right order? Is it at the right time? Did you put in all the receipts? Have you done your due diligence around that? If you're not being given the right work, right? If your workload isn't what you want and you're not being allocated the right things, are you doing the work that you're already supposed to be doing? You can't ask for more work if you haven't done the work that they've already given you. Are you doing the work that you're doing to standard, or is it maybe subpar? You have to meet the standard before you can take on extra work and nice to have things. We sometimes say it would be really great if everybody just got up every day and got paid to do stuff they like to do. That'd be super cool. That'd be, everybody's favorite job. But I think then, you'd be a reality TV star, basically.
You think that's the perfect job? Oh, gosh.
I really don't, but I think that's what people imagine, right? Get up and get to do whatever I want all day. But, of course, this isn't the news you guys want to hear, maybe, but it is reality, right? It's not technically fair. It's one of the things that happens when you work for, a team. There's work that has to be done, and sometimes it gets allocated in ways that we don't think are perfect. And we have to work in service to our organization. So we have to do what's handed to us to standard, and we have to do the right things. And especially if you want a promotion. If you do want a promotion, you have to ask yourself, Have you been excelling in the job you have now? Like, are you going above and beyond the standard? Have you done the work to show that you deserve a promotion, right? We have a podcast for that. If you haven't gone above and beyond, if you haven't met the standard for a promotion, then HR isn't going to help you with that.
Yeah.
It's not their job.
Yeah, it's not their job to help you get a promotion.
Yeah.
It's your job to work out what you need to do and get that done. And sometimes they say it's called work for a reason. It is work. That's why it's called work. Work isn't necessarily easy. It's not necessarily fun. It's not necessarily what you want to do. It's not necessarily fair that you have to do some work to prove that you deserve a promotion. Like, it would be nice if somebody came along and noticed you and said, you're doing a really good job and now I'm going to give you more money. It would be nice, but it's a fairy tale. It doesn't happen that way. You have to put in the effort. You have to be able to prove it. You have to have done the work.
Absolutely.
So the last one here is really sad as well. I find it sad. Do you want to talk off the record? And the sad thing is, off the record doesn't exist. HR can't agree to talk to you off the record. What do you think would happen if they agreed to talk to you off the record and then you told them you've been embezzling money? Like, I just embezzled the company out of $2 million. What are they going to do? Oh, it's off the record, so we can't do anything? Of course not. They're going to call the police or, an accountant or whatever you do when you find out people have been embezzling money. They can't not take action because they are agents of the organization. And their job is to protect the organization. And if you've been embezzling money, that's protecting the organization against you. And maybe there's a big example, that maybe you just want to talk off the record because you want advice on dealing with a peer, or you want advice on maternity leave and nobody knows yet that you're pregnant. It doesn't really matter whether it's a big thing or a small thing. Off the record doesn't exist. And if they say, yes, we'll talk to you off the record, don't believe them. Because the moment you say something they have to action, they'll action it.
Yeah.
Whether they said it was off the record or not.
But it's true, right? Again, it's reality. Even if you're asking for a friend, right? Maybe it's a hypothetical. That's super dangerous. There's so many things that you just don't really want to do.
Yeah, go to HR and ask for a friend in inverted commas. Yeah, don't do that because they'll remember it. And I know this because for a while I worked in an HR department. Recruitment is usually separated from HR, and recruitment people don't think of themselves as HR, but for some reason the only place there was a desk was in the HR department, and so I did recruitment within the HR department. And people would come in and talk to the HR people and say, like, hypothetically, if this happened, what would I be able to do? And the thing is, the building had like 400 people in it or something. And all the people that worked there had worked there for 20 years. So the moment you said, oh, hypothetically, if this was happening, HR knew exactly who you were talking about.
Right.
Because there was a limited number of people, and part of their job is to know who the people are and what their relationship to each other is. So they could work it out immediately. So
right.
There was no hypothetical there. And HR don't forget things. There's stuff that they deliberately don't think about, but they don't forget it. So they know exactly how much everybody is paid, right?
Yeah.
When they go to the lunchroom, they're not thinking, oh, there's Jim, he gets 34,000. There's Neil, he's 45,000. There's Stuart, he gets 42,000. They deliberately don't think about it in general. In my experience, they don't go around thinking about those things all the time, in part because they've got a million other things to think about like everyone else. But if you ask them, they know how much those people are paid because it's part of their job to know how much people are paid. So if you don't want HR to know what you're planning, then don't ask them about it. Don't tell them about it because they can't know if you don't tell them. But the moment you tell them, it's another piece of information that's important for the company to know, and therefore they have to act on it, even if it's, oh, I'm just going to store that for later and look at the situation again in 6 months and see what happened.
Right.
They have to act in the interest of the organization. That's their role. They're not your friend. They're not on your side.
Yeah. They don't work for you. They work for the company, and their loyalty is always going to lie there. They'll always act within the best interest of the company because that's their role. So don't expect them to be on your side, and you'll occasionally be pleasantly surprised.
When they do something nice for you.
Yeah.
And, it's not that they're not nice people. It's not that they're not professional. It is actually that they are super professional, and their job is to not get engaged in the emotions and the feelings and the stress of whatever's going on for you. Their job is to protect the company, and that's what they do. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, Wendy.
Bye, everyone. Hope that was helpful. We'll see you again next week.